Some albums, guys, are great. Some albums, they're classics. But a rare few reshape the entire landscape of music. These are the records that didn't just define eras, they created them. Albums that shifted cultures, rewired genres, and became permanent fixtures in the DNA of modern sound. Today, we're not talking about favorites. We're talking about foundations. So let's go ahead and drop that needle. Welcome to Ampyre Sessions, where discovery meets rebellion. This is the show that takes you on a journey through the world of music, the riffs, the legends, the hidden stories, and the lessons that fuel creativity. Here, we break down the craft, the culture, and the chaos of sound, making it raw and unforgettable. Whether you're a musician, a fan, or just hungry for knowledge, Ampyre is your backstage pass to the rebellion of audio. So plug in, turn up. This is Ampyre Sessions. I'm your host, Dustin, guys. Today, we are climbing into another top 10 countdown. We're going to do the top 10 albums of all time, okay? The records that changed literally everything. So without further ado, let's jump into how this works, okay? So these albums were chosen on certain criteria, okay? Impact is one that I looked at. Did they shift the culture? Okay. 2 is innovation. Did they break rules or create new ones? 3 is legacy. Are they still shaping music today? And 4 is craft. Did they elevate the art form and leave it bigger and better? And finally, the 5th and last measure is a sort of mythology. Did they become bigger than the artists themselves? Okay. So this is about the albums that built the world that we listen to. Okay. So without further ado, let's begin the descent. We're going to start at number 10, guys. Number 10. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Obviously, her name is in the album itself. It was made by Lauryn Hill in 1998. Okay. Why does this album land at 10? Okay. Lauryn Hill didn't just make an album, she made a manifesto. She changed the game, guys. A fusion of hip hop, soul, reggae, and gospel that felt both ancient and also futuristic at the same time. It set a new bar for vulnerability, storytelling, and genre blending. No debut album has ever hit this hard. Let's take a look at the impact. Redefined neo soul and hip hop. Let's look at the innovations of this album. Emotional transparency and hybrid vocal rap delivery. And also the cultural weight. It created a blueprint for modern R&B. Signature trait, to me, this album feels like a spiritual fire. If you've never listened to Lauryn Hill, she has a beautiful voice. Go out and listen to that album. Or at least a song of hers. She's a fantastic artist. Okay. Without further ado, we begin the climb, though. We climbed down from 9 to 5. Let's hit number 9. In case y'all didn't know, I gush over this band all the time. It's Nevermind is the album by Nirvana, 1991. Why it's here. This album didn't just break through, it broke everything. Okay? It killed the 80s overnight and dragged alternative rock into mainstream heaven. It's a cultural reset button disguised as a punk-infused grenade. Let's look at the impact that this album had. It created mainstream grunge. It really did. Really, before Nirvana and before that album, you never really delved deep into it, and you never really heard grunge on a new level. They made an impact. Innovations, quiet, loud dynamics, thanks to Kurt Cobain, in my opinion, because one-of-a-kind, unique voice that could literally take you from just an out-loud story, make it soft, and then come back to it. It was amazing. Cultural weight, it's Gen X anthem. Signature trait, to me, this album feels like raw catharsis. It gave you permission to feel things that before the world was like, don't even say anything. You need to lock that inside. Nah, this album made people be like, so I can feel that, and it is okay if I feel that. That is what music is, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I loved about Nirvana. Anywho, we're going to jump down to number 8. We're at number 8 now. Songs in the Key of Life. In case you don't know who made this, it was Stevie Wonder back in 1976. So why is it here? It's a double album that feels like a universe. Stevie Wonder, at the height of his powers, blending funk, soul, jazz, pop, and social commentary into a masterpiece that feels ahead of its time. So look at the impact that album had. It elevated soul to a symphonic scale. Another person that made a huge impact. Innovations, synth layering, harmonic complexity. As you know, 1976 wasn't that far from 80s. We start hitting a lot of synth and electronic tones. Cultural weight, universal influence. Signature trait, this album feels boundless with creativity. To me personally, I've never heard this album. I love Stevie Wonder as an artist, but I've never heard this album, which for me, I have homework on my own right to do. So I'm going to go look this up after this. Move on to number 7. I talked about him in a recent episode. To Pimp a Butterfly. Kendrick Lamar, made in 2015. Why is it here? In case you don't know, Kendrick Lamar is a game changer. Not just in the world of hip hop, but the way he fuses multiple aspects of life in general into music is so damn creative. It blows your mind when you listen to it. But I'll explain why it's here. Why is this album at number 7? It's a modern epic of jazz, funk, hip hop, and spoken word fused into political, emotional, and spiritual odyssey. This album didn't just reflect the times, guys, it defined them for what 2015 was. Let's look at the impact. It reframed hip hop as high art, which, in my opinion, at this time in 2015, you really needed someone to come in here and redefine things. He did. Innovations, jazz rap fusion, the narrative cohesion, a cultural weight, Black Lives Matter era anthem. And to me, the signature trait of this album, it was cinematic storytelling. It was a great album. If you had never listened to it, I highly recommend. Even if you're not into hip hop, for someone who redefines a generation, so to speak, not only from a genre standpoint, but a fusion of genres, it's fantastic. Highly recommend listening to that album. Number 6, we talk about somebody I have not touched at all yet, but made a substantial impact back in the 70s and 80s. Number 6, the album Rumors by Fleetwood Mac in 1977. Why is it here? It's a pop rock masterpiece forged in emotional chaos. Okay. Every song is a hit. Every harmony is a dagger. And every lyric is a confession. It's the sound of a band falling apart and creating perfection in the process. Let's take a look at the impact. It defined 70s pop rock. Innovations, layered harmonies, polished production. Okay. Cultural weight of this album. It was an eternal radio sample. Okay. Culture and signature trait. To me, this album screamed beautiful, but also had a lot of tension to it. Okay. I have listened to Fleetwood Mac not as often as I probably should, but it's fantastic. Some of their songs are. I haven't delved deep into this album. Again, I have homework to do, but it is an amazing album from what I hear. Now, guys, I want you to take a second and join me on the summit from number 4 to number 2. We've already hit that halfway point. Isn't that weird? All right. So we jump into number 4. We got Thriller. Obviously, you probably already know just by the name who made this. If you don't, Michael Jackson made this, 1982. Why is it here? The biggest album of all time, and it earned every inch of its legend. Thriller didn't just dominate charts, it reshaped pop, music videos, dance, and global stardom. Impact of this album, it globalized pop, innovations, music videos as cinema. If I recall correctly, Michael Jackson was the first ever to make music videos that were like a movie. It told a story from start to finish and took you on a ride. The whole album is fantastic, but the song in particular too. Not only for that, he broke through racial barriers just to get onto MTV. The cultural weight of this album, it's a cross-genre phenomenon. Okay? The signature trait that this album screams to me is precision, all mixed in with a spectacle. He had something to say, but then also he made it in amazement. Number 3, ladies and gentlemen, a band I don't talk too much about. But yeah, it's The Dark Side of the Moon. In case you don't know, my rock fans already know who I'm talking about. It is Pink Floyd who made this album back in 1973. Okay, why is it here? Why is it at 3? Why did it make the top 3 of all time albums? It's a psychedelic, philosophical, sonic odyssey. Okay, this album turned the studio into an instrument and proved that concept albums could be both experimental and universally resonant. Okay. Let's look at the impact that this album had. It elevated the concept album, took it to a whole nother level. Innovations, tape loops, and sound design. Cultural weight, it is the longest charting album ever of all time. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why it is in the top 3 alone. And the signature trait of this album, guys, to me, it's like a cosmic odyssey, but it also has bits of introspection within it. It's a fantastic album. If you never listened to Pink Floyd, it does take you on a journey. Every single one of their albums, especially this one does, has something to say, but it takes you on a journey while saying it. Okay? Unbeknownst to the band Journey, which, spoiler alert, they're not in the top 2. Anywho, number 2. You guessed it, we talked about them in the past. Abbey Road by the Beatles in 1969. Okay. Why is it here? This is the Beatles' final masterpiece. A band at the end of its life creating something eternal. The melody alone is one of the greatest achievements in rock history. The impact, it defined modern rock production. Its innovations that is side to melody with harmonics. Cultural weight, it's an iconic cover, but also an iconic sound. People forget that. You always recognize it by the album cover and the album art. The signature trait, it's studio wizardry. It redefined what it meant to record in a studio with instruments. Highly recommend. Go and look it up. Now, guys, jumping to the final breath. This is the calm before we crown number 1. So, guys, we've climbed from 10 to 2. Every album so far has left a crater in this world, but number 1, that's different, guys. Number 1 isn't just an influence, it's an ignition. This is the album that didn't just shift music. It rewrote the rules of what an album is. So guys, take a breath. The crown is next. But before we get into that, let's recap 10 through 2, right? All right. So at number 10, you guys remember, we had the wonderful album that is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, made by Lauryn Hill. Number 9, we had Nevermind by Nirvana. At number 8, guys, we had Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar at 7. At 6, we had Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. We had Thriller by Michael Jackson. The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Abbey Road by the Beatles. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get a lot of grief for what's number 1, but I think they were one of the greatest bands to ever have storytelling mixed with harmony and poetry. Fantastic group. Their frontman unfortunately passed away recently, but they were able to turn harmony into a cathedral, and everything that you heard from them was a spectacle in its own right, and it took you on a journey. At number 1, ladies and gentlemen, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys in 1966. Why is it here? This album changed everything, guys. Brian Wilson, who unfortunately passed away, turned pop into poetry, harmony into architecture, and he turned the studio into a damn cathedral. Pet Sounds didn't just influence the Beatles, it influenced everyone who cared about making albums as art. Which truly, to be honest, at the end of the day, for modern artists, you don't have that anymore. Everyone's looking for a chart-topping song. They could care less about making a complete album, which is crap, in my opinion. Your album is supposed to tell a journey, tell a story, go in depth on something, and take your listener on a ride. No one does that anymore. Correct that. Very few do that anymore. I know the rock industry and the metal industry still do, but modern day pop, country, man, the albums don't matter. Hell, I don't even think there's a category for album of the year anymore. That is how crazy this is. That is why these guys are at number one. Okay, let's look at the impact. They redefined album as an art, innovations, orchestration, and modular recording. Cultural weight, they left a blueprint for modern production and how music is produced. Signature trait in this album, it's emotional vulnerability wrapped in a sonic beauty. That is why Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, they're number one. They changed the game on albums, hands down. Now, I kind of went in depth on albums and went a little rant right there. Cool. I have a future episode coming. Look out for it. It's about the death of an album. Because, ladies and gentlemen, albums are dying. No one's making albums besides the rock and metal industry anymore. And if they are, it's probably a one-hit album because they had something to say. Like, I'm not going to say Before To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar in the hip-hop industry that no one told stories anymore, but that was the most recent one. I don't think before he made that album really wasn't anything out there that would literally tell you from start to finish in hip hop and pop. To me, guys, the album is dying and it's really sad to see. So, yes, I'm passionate about that because I love being taken on a journey, on a story, not just becoming a one-hit wonder and creating one fantastic song. Nobody wants that, fam. So, let's move on here. Let's move on to the echoes. So what do you guys think? This list is obviously going to ignite some comments, which majority of my top 10s do. But which album shaped your world? Okay. Which one did I miss? Which one do you guys think shouldn't be on this list? Debate is the heartbeat of music culture, and I love to see it. Let's take a look, step back with me. Look at this from a wider lens. What does this list really say? Albums just aren't collections of songs, guys. They're worlds, blueprints, revolutions. These 10 records didn't just soundtrack history, guys. They shaped, and that, to me, I take this personal on this thing because, on albums, because it's like a book. That is what an album is. You're supposed to tell a story. From song 1 to song 10, 12, 14, whatever it ends on, you're supposed to take your listener on a journey. And it's very far and few between anymore for modern day music, what's mainstreamed or algorithmed, to actually do that. That is why I love rock right now. So this is the point in the show where I'd sit back, I'd ask for your shares, your likes, your follows. I'm not going to do that today. It's a couple key points that I want to make. So obviously, if you haven't known the news, Three Doors Down, their frontman, Brad Arnold, passed away recently due to stage 4 cancer that he had. Unfortunately, that was a huge loss to the music industry, to post-grunge, to alt-rock, whatever you want to call it. Dad rock is what the kids call it nowadays, I guess. I just want to say rest in peace. Fantastic prayers and thoughts to his family, his friends, his bandmates. Definitely is a band to me that made an impact on my life. I remember when my uncle first turned on the song Kryptonite by Three Doors Down. I fell in love with the band. I loved that song. It's actually their top song they ever made. It's a tragic loss to me in the music industry because it was a person that, even though I never met him, it helped shape who I am today in a sense, as far as a musical aspect of me. So rest in peace to Brad Arnold. Will be missed. If you never heard Three Doors Down music, I highly encourage it. It's not screamo. It's nothing like that. It's very good alternative rock for what the 90s were. If you never heard them, go listen to them. But yes, that is something I want to state. Rest in peace, Brad Arnold. And I want to share a cool statistic too with you guys before we close this out. There was actually, I can't remember where the source was from. I'd have to go back into my videos and show it, but I actually posted it on my story on Instagram. If you guys aren't following me on Instagram, go follow it so you can look at that story. But it's funny how the 90s, there's a statistic. So There were over 40 bands in the Billboard's top 100 back in the 90s. 40, not just, what their crap is today. 40 were in the top. It's a really interesting statistic, so pay attention to this. 40 were in the top Billboard's 100. The next bar that was in this graph showed the list of how many Americans were medicated for mental health disorders. 14 million. Okay? You're probably like, wow, that's a lot, man. Wait until I provide the other statistic. Just wait. Nowadays, from the year 2025 to 26, there are zero rock and roll bands in the Billboard's top 100. Zero. None of them. People can probably claim this person is, but they're not. It doesn't sound like it, so they're not. There's zero. You want to know how many Americans are medicated for mental health disorders at this point? In a 2-decade span, it went from 14 million. Now we're up to 45 million Americans that are medicated for mental health disorders. Now, I'm not bashing on mental health or anything like that, but I really think this is a time to introspectively look and be like, music changed over the past 20 years, right? I think we all can agree on that, if not a little bit longer. But that is something in my previous episodes that I've said about rock and roll. It gives people the freedom and emotion to be free, to release some emotion and be socially accepted to release that emotion. That is why, guys, to me, you're not seeing rock and roll bands in the Billboard Top 100s, is because people aren't taking it seriously enough to where it's like, okay, I need a different release. It's like, to me, 20-year time period, yes, health scare system and stuff like that can evolve over time as well. But over 31 million more Americans are on mental health medication in a 20-year span, and the music that we listen to has changed. I just thought that was an interesting statistic, guys. Maybe I'll hit that on a new episode sometime in the future. But I thought it was a really cool statistic. Like I said, I posted the story that this guy posted as well. I put it on my Instagram. Guys, go follow me on Instagram. Click that and tell me what y'all think. I think it's a very interesting, introspective way of looking at things because to me, guys, modern day pop, it's all algorithm based. They want money. They're not actually there for you. For me, in my opinion, that is why rock and roll is forever the king of music because it's socially acceptable in our communities to sit here and be like, okay, well, you're having some problems. Go release that in a pit. Go release that in a song. Go sit there at the edge of a fucking stage and bawl your eyes out because you know what? Everyone's been at that point in their life. No one's going to judge you. And I think that's where society becomes fake and becomes a fall. It really does. And I think that's one crucial key statistic because I do believe in that. I believe music has become a place to where we hide our emotions instead of making it acceptable to release it. But yeah, in case you haven't looked at it, go look at my Instagram story. I'd appreciate it if you did. And tell me what you guys think. Comment on it, please. Send me a message. I respond back usually pretty quickly within a day. So yeah. Either way, guys, you've been listening to Ampyre Sessions, where discovery meets rebellion. The journey doesn't stop here. Keep exploring, keep creating, and keep the fire alive. Until next time, guys, stay loud, stay bold, and never fade into the noise. This was Ampyre Sessions.